تعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على العالمين صدق الله العلي العظيم. Over the last few nights we spoke about different topics, but yesterday specifically we spoke about the Quran, the everlasting miracle, and we showed we spoke about miracles and how that is of the signs that prove prophethood. And that for a prophet, it is enough for them to claim prophethood. And if a miracle comes with that claim, that supports the claim of prophethood, that makes them a prophet. Today, we will talk about the actual concept of prophethood. What is it that we believe about prophethood? What are prophets? And what qualities and characteristics must they hold? Because we said from one aspect is that they claim prophethood and they bring a miracle. However, is that enough? Does that mean that someone like me can just come and claim prophethood, show you a miracle, and then I become a prophet? So these are questions that must be answered. An individual must understand what a prophet is. And unfortunately, what happens many times is we know these concepts by name, but we don't know them in detail. Not saying that I will give you extreme or extensive detail right now. However, inshallah, it would be enough for an individual to then take back home and search into it. By the way, on the idea of research, because I did mention over the last few nights, I will mention at least one point and I will tell everyone to go back and search into this point. I really hope that you are doing so. Although I can probably assure you that maybe 99% of you are not doing so. However, if you do, there is actually a very nice story. These are the nights of Qadr, correct? One day, Sheikh Al-Ansari is walking into the shrine. Sheikh Al-Ansari was a famous jurist and scholar of his time. In fact, he is probably the last sole marja in the world during his time. A very big scholar walks into the shrine on the night of Qadr, the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah alayh. A person comes up to him. He says to him, "Oh Sheikh, tell me, what is the best deed that I can do today on the night of Qadr?" To bring it closer to you for those. Imagine you walk today into the shrine and you see, for example, Sayyid Sistani. This is what we're talking about. And now it's the night of Qadr and you ask him, what is the best deed that I can do? Usually what will people expect? Recite Dua Hamza Thamali, pray 100 rak'ah, pray this, do this, sah? The Sheikh turned around to him. He said to him, "Are you a student?" He said to him, "Yes." He said, "Go back into your room and study." Go back into your room and study. Gaining knowledge on the night of Qadr is one of the greatest deeds a person can do. As someone comes tell me, we take from the talk of the ulama and we leave the ahadith. La, the talk of the ulama is based off on the ahadith. We have narrations from our imams that talk about the idea of gaining knowledge on the nights of Qadr. One of the best deeds an individual can do. So even if you gain one new piece of knowledge every night in these next few nights, I think it would be more than enough, inshallah. So واحد يقول لي, I'm sitting in the lecture. لا, the lecture is not enough. Go and do your own research as well, inshallah. So this is that aspect. So when we come to prophethood, Nabi, why is a Nabi called a Nabi? The very simple answer to that is because it comes from a root verb that means the one who gives news. When a person, we say he was called a Nabi لأنه أنبأ عن الله, because he gave news, he gave a khabar from Allah Azza wa Jal. He gave something that came to him from a divine source. This Nabi is an individual in many of our aqaidi books, especially if you go back to, for example, Allama al-Hilli's work, if you go back to Sheikh al-Mudaffar's work, these works that we read in front of us, many of them, Al-Fadl al-Maqdad mentions this, our great scholars mention these types of definitions. They say a prophet is al-mukhbir anillah, the one who tells you something from Allah Azza wa Jal. That is what a prophet is. They also add another word to it. Al-Bashar al-Mukhbir anillah. As if someone comes and tells me, why did he say Al-Bashar al-Mukhbir anillah? First of all, When I say al-bashar, I am taking away any other creation. I've taken away the jinn, I've taken away angels, I've taken away any other type of creation. So who becomes a prophet? A human that does what? Al-mukhbir anillah. Then they add another qaid. They add another extension to it, if you like. Biduni wasita. Without an intermediary, is the wasita? Intermediary. This complete definition, I want every single person in this hall to memorize. These, by the way, definitions are one of the most important things we have when it comes to our aqa'id. Many of the issues that we fall into, even in harafat aqa'idiyya, when a person has issues within their aqa'idi belief, I promise you that many times it is because of an issue in a definition. I'm going to actually give you a hint. Many times when I want to prepare a strong lecture, do you know what I do? This is my own preparation. For example, yesterday we spoke about the Quran, the everlasting miracle. If you just realized, I don't say this out loud, but now you know my trick. If you realized I started with the definition of a miracle, then my whole talk was expanding that definition. Why? Because everything that we have is based on definition. Many times when you see a disagreement between two individuals, because they haven't come to an agreement on a definition. When you come to the agreement on a definition, then we'll be able to talk. For example, I'll give you a very simple example. We talk about the time of Fajr, okay? Talk about the time of Fajr. We haven't defined what Fajr is. So suddenly you find one person is talking about Fajr al-Kadhib and another person is talking about Fajr al-Sadiq. They're all both talking about what? Fajr. Unless we define what we are talking about, we will fall into big issues. And that is why, again, I'm going to come forward and say, a prophet, al-bashar, al-mukhbir anillahi ta'ala biduni wasita. A human that gives news from Allah Azza wa Jal without an intermediary. Now I'm going to tell you why this definition is important. If I say al-bashar al-mukhbir anillah and I don't add bidun wasita, do you know who I have included? I can include myself. Why? Because I'm giving you lectures and I'm telling you things from Allah Azza wa Jal. I'm giving you Quranic verses. I'm telling you Allah said so and so. So I can also be a prophet. Why? Because I'm a bashar and I'm also what? Mukhbir anillah in this case. I can claim prophethood in that case. Bidun wasita is the importance. I say you tell me, this is a simple example. Let me give you a deeper example. What does the Prophet say to Amir al-Mu'mineen? أنت مني بمنزلة هارون من موسى إلا أنه لا نبي بعدي. Why لا نبي بعدي أبدا? Because Amir al-Mu'mineen, did he not do إخبار عن الله? Did he not tell you things from Allah Azza wa Jal? No. Amir al-Mu'mineen is not a bashar. So if he's a bashar and he did إخبار عن الله, so then he's a what? Prophet. Now you might tell me miracles have to also be included. Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't have some sort of miracles. So in that case what? Amir al-Mu'mineen becomes what? A prophet, right? But what is the qaid we added? Biduni wasita. Without an intermediary. Which is why the imams do not become included into the definition of prophethood. See, this is the importance of definition. Otherwise, if I don't add that, an imam can be included. So where does the imam gain his knowledge from? علمني رسول الله ألف باب من العلم كل باب ينفرج عن ألف باب. Rasulullah taught me 1,000 doors of knowledge. Each door opens up to 1,000,000 doors of knowledge. Can you imagine what kind of extensive ilm this is? But where did he receive this knowledge from? Directly from Allah Azza wa Jal? No. But he received this knowledge through his prophets. So this is the definition that we stand by to begin with. Now we have understood what this concept is. We must understand, why is it that then Allah Azza wa Jal needs to send us prophets? Is it something that has to happen or not? The answer is very simple. I don't want to take too much of your time on this point. Allah Azza wa Jal created the human, and last year we spoke about a topic, why were we created, if you remember. Allah Azza wa Jal created the human for the aspect of what? Worship. He created the heaven and the hell, and He created us to be tested and for us to be judged. Correct? Is it then fair for Allah Azza wa Jal to do all of that without giving us the guidance? Is it just from Allah Azza wa Jal to tell me on the day of judgment, you should have prayed 5 times a day? Can I not then just say to Him, Ilahi, you didn't even tell me that I need to pray 5 times a day? Either I receive revelation from Allah directly, or you send me someone who receives revelation from Allah directly. Otherwise, how can I believe in such an individual? Or how can I then perform my wajibat as they need to be done? Therefore, from a logical point of view, when I have established that Allah is just, logically Allah must send the Prophet. Now you're going to understand why I'm making this point very specifically. It's all for the next point. If I have understood this, which is a very simple matter, I don't want to take time on it. If I have understood this, I must understand that a Prophet then also cannot be any individual. A Prophet then must be an individual that has some sort of divine intervention from Allah Azza wa Jal. This, by the way, we call something qa'idatul lutf. This qa'idatul lutf, is one of the most important aqa'idi foundations we have. What is this qa'idatul lutf? What brings you closer to Allah and takes you further away from disobeying Allah. Whatever takes you closer to obedience and further away from disobedience is what? We call lutf. We call lutf. Otherwise you can translate it to grace. But I don't like to translate these types of concepts because it's a concept. A concept cannot be translated. The concept of lutf. What brings you closer to obedience, further away from disobedience. For example, Quran. It brings you closer to obedience, further away from disobedience. So therefore it is what? Lutf. Lutf becomes wajib upon Allah Azza wa Jal. As Sawahid comes and tells me, how can you say that something is wajib on Allah Azza wa Jal? Wujub, when we say something is wajib, it can come in 2 different forms. Either something that is obligatory or something that is necessary. If I say something is obligatory upon Allah Azza wa Jal, I tell you, how can I say something is obligatory upon Allah? But sometimes I say something is necessary upon Allah. Why is it necessary? Because within His nature, this specific thing becomes necessary. Let me give you an example. Allah Azza wa Jal is wajib to exist. Does that mean that it is obligatory upon Him to exist or necessary? Necessary. Because within His nature He has to exist. So you say wajib al-wujud, necessary existence. But you don't come forward and you say it's obligatory upon Him to exist. Likewise, I say lutf is wajib, meaning lutf is necessary because of His nature. So Allah Azza wa Jal chooses some of His servants to have this lutf, which is why the verse that we started with, that Allah chose Adam and Nuh, and Allah astafa Adam wa Nuhan wa ala Ibrahim wa ala Imran ala al-alamin. These individuals, Adam, Nuh, the family of Ibrahim, the family, they were chosen to have what? To have this lutf within them. To have this lutf within them. Now you might come and tell me, well, there is a difference between these individuals. One, some of them became prophets, others became messengers. They both are prophets. And our topic is prophethood, not messengership. Messengership is a step extra, which is why we have a qa'idah, we have a basis that we'll also set now, which is كل رسول نبي وليس كل نبي رسول. Every messenger is a prophet, but not every prophet is a messenger. The difference between them is very simple, by the way. A messenger, first of all, comes with a new sharia usually, or comes with a book. Their wahi is directly from Allah Azza wa Jal, and they can see the wahi, the angel, if you like, or whatever other type of wahi Allah wants to send upon them while they are awake, or while they are asleep, and they can directly see them. A Nabi comes also from Allah Azza wa Jal, but it is not obligatory upon him to inform others, which is why sometimes we have prophets who are prophets for themselves. And a prophet cannot see the wahi while they are awake. They see the wahi in their sleep. Regardless, our topic is prophethood. Messengership is a step extra. So this prophet that then comes, if they have all of these qualities, and they are the individuals that give me news from Allah Azza wa Jal, and they see wahi in this sense, then we have two other important concepts we must add to them, because it becomes necessary for them to have these aspects. The first of them is that they must be complete individuals. Complete in every sense possible. Complete in every sense possible. The second of them is for them to be ma'soom, immaculate. I'll come to the complete and then I'll come to the usma. The idea of a prophet being complete is because when you have another individual more complete than them, you will find that it is then qabih, it is not appropriate to then bring an individual who is less complete and make them in charge of a person who is complete. I'll give you an example as to where this completion applies. Number one, in the way that they look. Might tell me, Ibraheim, the way they look, what does that have to do with it? I ask you today, if you were to choose a leader today, to lead a big movement such as the movement of Islam, okay? You bring a new Sharia. In terms of their physical appearance, who would usually be more suitable to be representing this new leadership? An individual who is complete in the way that they look, or an individual who has certain uyub, certain things about the way that they look, that usually when people see them, they would even laugh at them? Who? The complete one. So this is why from the looks, they must be perfect. From the akhlaq, they must be perfect. Bravery, they must be perfect. In every sense possible, they must be perfect. Which is why I get surprised when people talk about the bravery of Rasulullah and as if he wasn't the most brave of the brave. Rasulullah, however you imagine Amir al-Mu'mineen to be brave, I tell you Rasulullah was 1,000,000 times more than that. 1,000,000 times more than that. Amir al-Mu'mineen, you've all heard about his bravery. I don't need to talk to you about Amir al-Mu'mineen's bravery. قال عباب خيبر, the one who killed Amr ibn Awid, the one who did this, the one who did that. You know all of that? Add it all together. Imagine this same man, he says, when we used to leave the house, we used to hide behind Rasulullah like a duckling hides behind their mother duck. What kind of, if you like, aura did Rasulullah hold? Wallah. What did Rasulullah hold? Amir al-Mu'mineen, that you shabab think he's full of aura. Imagine Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying what? I used to hide behind Rasulullah like ducklings hide behind their mother duck. Can we imagine what Rasulullah was? So he was the most perfect. This is what I mean about complete. As for the one who is ma'soom, we say that because they are informing of Allah Azza wa Jal, they must be ma'soom. Why? Because there is one of two options. Either they are ma'soom or they are not. There is no third option. He can't be half ma'soom, half not ma'soom. Now, when he tells me something, either he is correct or he is lying. Either he makes mistakes or he doesn't make mistakes. The point of prophets is what? Guidance, correct? Now, this guidance, if it comes from an individual who is not immaculate, who is not ma'soom, I am going to have an issue. Why? I either follow or I don't follow. If I follow the mistake, it means Allah Azza wa Jal has allowed me to follow a mistake, and that is against guidance. And if I don't follow, it is not wajib for me to follow him in every aspect. Then what happens? There's no point of guidance anymore. What becomes the point of guidance? Therefore, again, from a very simple, logical point of view, Asma becomes wajib upon them. Not only that, the asma is wajib on them from birth. From the moment that they are born, they must be ma'soom. You might tell me why. If a person is known in their youth to make a lot of mistakes, or known in their youth to be, for example, of those that were not perfect in every way that was possible, it becomes hard for an individual to then follow them at an old age, regardless. Which is why Rasulullah, from a young age, for example, he was known as a sadiqin. I mean, it wasn't after his prophethood, it was from before his prophethood. Because they must hold these perfect characteristics from the start. This is the summary of what we believe about prophets. I can't summarize it more than that, by the way. But these headlines are extremely important for you. Those who want to discuss more about the concept of prophethood are more than happy to do so. But this basis is the minimum basis a person needs to understand prophethood from an aqaidi point of view. So, I come back to the definition. A prophet is who? A human who brings news from Allah Azza wa Jal without an intermediary. Al-Bashar al-Mukhbir anillah bidun wasita. A final point I want to make very quickly on the issue of Asma, a translation issue. And I hope that you all are very careful with this translation. Tomorrow I'll talk more about Asma, by the way. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the concept of imamah. But I want to talk from a Asma point of view, and you'll see it will be inshallah a different lens you'll have on the idea of imamah and what imamah truly is. However, Asma itself is translated usually within the English language to what? What's the translation of Asma? Infallible? Ghalat. This is the usual. Infallible is wrong. It is wrong to translate a ma'soom to infallible. Asma in the Arabic language is used in two senses. Once we say an angel is what? Ma'soom. And once we say the prophet is ma'soom. The angel being ma'soom is infallible, correct. But that does not apply to a prophet. Why? Infallible, if you look up the dictionary, you'll find an infallible is an individual who cannot make a mistake. They are perfect because they cannot make a mistake. Our belief in prophethood is that they are able to perform mistakes, but they choose not to. Tomorrow, inshallah, I'll focus more on it. But they choose not to. So therefore, the correct translation in the English language is that a prophet is an immaculate. An immaculate is an individual who can, but chooses not to. Tomorrow, I'll focus more on this, inshallah. As someone comes and tells me prophets made mistakes, etc., Adam, other prophets, we can talk about that inshallah in one of the discussion circles. I don't mind, we can talk about that. But this is the concept of prophethood. So Allah Azza wa Jal chose certain individuals to take over. Why? So you might tell me, why did he choose this one over this one? It's a fair question, no? Simple answer. We've established the Quran is there, we've established prophethood. Then now that I've understood prophethood, I know that Asma applies to Muhammad. I know that completion applies to Muhammad. I know that perfection applies to Muhammad. All of these apply to Muhammad. And he came and he claimed prophethood. I said to him, fine, you have all of these things. Asma, I can't decide on you because Asma is internal, not external. And because it's internal, only Allah would know. I wouldn't know. But I know that you're complete. I know you're perfect. I know you're brave. I know you know how to read and write. I know how you can do all of these things. And he came and he said, you're a prophet. Muhammad, bring me a miracle. He said, fine, this is the Quran, this is my miracle. So I said, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. This concept, bring yesterday and today together, you understand this prophethood. Because prophethood comes in two forms. Sometimes we talk about Nubuwa Amma, the general prophethood, which is any prophet. Nubuwa Khasa, we talk about specifically our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So we say that Allah a'lam hayth yaj'al risalatah. And this was an issue that many individuals had. Why is it that Allah chooses? We don't want Allah to choose. We want to choose. And based off on prophethood and perfection and completion and all of that, you find that the Prophet usually wouldn't leave without appointing a successor. And we'll talk about that successorship tomorrow. Usually they wouldn't leave without leaving a successor. So he left Amir al-Mu'mineen as a successor, but all of you know there is a coup that happened. And you had the first by the name of Abu Bakr, he took over, but Abu Bakr was smarter than the Prophet. But we just said you can't have an individual who's better during that time. But Abu Bakr was smarter. Why? Because he left a successor. And when he left a successor, Umar took over. And then when Umar took over, he was also smarter than the Prophet, because he said, how am I going to leave it to the people to choose? And then they have to think of Saqifa, they have to think of this, Khatiyya. We leave it between Shura, so Uthman was chosen. Ali ibn Abi Talib comes in, but suddenly this wasn't a good decision. Why? Because from one aspect you had Talha, Zubair, Aisha coming out in Jamal. Then after that you had Safin. Safin happens with Muawiyah. During that time you had a group of people with Amir al-Mu'mineen in Safin. They were there, then the tahkim happens, and that is how the battle was going to be decided. I'm talking very fast, but these are very important historical facts, by the way. Safin comes, they have to do tahkim, they have to decide. A group of companions from Amir al-Mu'mineen say, no, you send this person. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, no, I'm going to send this person. They said, no, how can you do so? If you send this person, you will lose. He said, okay, who do you want to send? Fulan? No problem. Fulan, you go. He goes, he sees the person that is sent from tahkim from Muawiyah. They go, they do the tahkim. Yeah, but what are you going to do for the tahkim? He looks at him, he says to him, take off your ring, just like you take off your khilafah, and I shall do the same. So this person was tricked, so he says, fine, he takes off his ring. He says, akhla'tu khatami, I took off my ring, in the same way that I took my bay'ah away from Ali ibn Abi Talib, just like the way I take off my ring from my hand. He said, fine, you have lost because you have just done your bay'ah, is finished. He comes back. The same people that said, send these people, what happened to them? He said, something's wrong with Ali ibn Abi Talib, he doesn't know how to make decisions. Yeah, but why? Because he sent this person. You told me to send him. He said, no. Based on this, there is an issue. Then we can't be with Muawiyah either, therefore we're going to make a new sect. That sect became known as the Khawarij. Ahsantum. Then, when I talk fast, you're still with me. Very good. So the Khawarij come forward. The Khawarij come forward and they begin to plot, and they have a concept that they apply. What is this concept that they apply? Hukum is only for Allah. Hukum is only for Allah. Don't talk to me about anything else. Which is why, of the greatest things that happened on the night of the 19th, from one aspect it was a great tragedy that Amir al-Mu'mineen was struck in his mihrab. That was an extremely painful aspect. But from a aqaidi point of view, one of the worst things happened. Which is that when Ibn Muljam hit Amir al-Mu'mineen, he would scream, Al-hukmu lillah, laysa laka ya Ali. Hukm is for who? Allah, not for you, O Ali. We are talking about foundations. Therefore, don't be surprised when Jibreel screams, Tahaddamat wallah arkanul huda. Don't be surprised. Aqaidi foundations were shaken. Tahaddamat wallah arkanul huda. And therefore Amir al-Mu'mineen would spend those days in the wound that he has. But what type of wound was this? Ajarakumullah. A wound so deep that it reached the brain of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah alayhi. Amir al-Mu'mineen spent these nights in his house. Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya narrates, he says, we were with our father Ali ibn Abi Talib during these nights. As he is sitting there reciting the Quran, performing istighfar, we all began to cry. He said, do not cry for me, do not cry for me, but close the doors. I don't want to see anyone right now. They closed the doors. He stayed with his family on these nights. Can you imagine on the night of the 20th of Shahr Ramadan, on a night like this, until a man comes forward by the name of Asbagh ibn Nabat. He says, I wanted to come and see Amir al-Mu'mineen in the state that he is in. When I was allowed to enter, I realized that Amir al-Mu'mineen was wearing a yellow turban. كان أمير المؤمنين عصابة صفراء، والله ما كنت أعلم إن كان وجهه أشد صفر أم العمامة. هاجركم الله. أخذ يبكي بكاء شديدا. قال له يا أصبغ لا تبكي فإنها الجنة. هاجركم الله. عندما سمع ذلك الحسن والحسين بكي بكاء شديدا. التفت إليهم أمير المؤمنين قال لهم أتبكي علي؟ تصور هاي الحالة، أمير المؤمنين يتحدث مع الحسن والحسين في هذه الليلة في هذه الحالة، يقول لهم أتبكي علي؟ ابكي كثيرا واضحكا قليلا. لماذا يا أمير المؤمنين؟ قال له بني حسن أما أنت فستقتل مظلوما مسموما، وأما أنت يا حسين فشهيد هذه الأمة. ماذا سيجري للحسين؟ آجركم الله. يقول وسترد أضلاعك وستذبح ذبح الشاة من القفا، ورأسك يدار من بلدة إلى بلدة، وبعد ونساؤك تسبى. أيوا مصيبته أين المنادي وحسينا وسيدا ومظلوما. تصور هاي الحالة، أمير المؤمنين مع الحسين يقلنا والدمع تيار بالعين، لا تبكي يا ابويا وبطل ونين، ترى قلبي انصدع لجلك يا الحسين، وجرح راسي عليه قام يسحر. يقول له يا ابويا مصيبتي ما هي عجيبة، عجيبة سهامهم جسمك تصيبه، عجيبة من تظل زينب غريبة ويسلبون العد ذاك الخدم. يقول له عجيبة 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 من تحز القوم نحرك، عجيبة من تدوس الخيل صدرك، عجيبة من تلوذ النسب كترك. والله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. تحضروا للطم جزاكم الله خير. رزاقكم على حالك. يا حسين وهم صابه، يا حسين وهم صابه، يا حسين وهم صابه.